Where I'm happy to bring another iteration of the #1 League of Legends game show, Jeopardash. The rules are simple. I'm going to ask the three of you some questions. If you're smart, you get it right. If you're dumb, you won't. Feel like
all right.
you got it?
So I guess
we know you got it on lock.
You can give me three points already because I'm so smart, right?
Woo! This isn't lane by lane. You don't just get free points, Mark. I know you won that earlier this week, but you'll have to wait for another episode of that. All right, question #1. What day of the week has the longest average game time? Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday? Mark, what's your answer?
I'm going to go Friday. I feel like Fridays are long.
Is there a specific reason? You just because you have a feeling like you're on air
I've worked
a long
every
time?
Friday, and I feel like they're long.
Okay,
Even though
Mark,
they're only 2 games.
It starts late, that's why.
Yeah, Mark thinks Friday. I'm going to go to Prolly next because he had his hands up second. What are you thinking, Prolly?
Hands. I had both hands.
Yeah, both hands.
I'm going to say end of the weekend, Sunday, because everyone's just tired as hell, and they're like, all right, let's get through this.
Sunday's the call there in Crumbs. Do you fall in one of these camps, or are you split in the middle on Saturday?
Those were both of my answers, so I'm not going to stick to them anymore. I'm just going to take the last remaining and see if it's right. So
all right,
Saturday?
they're covering their bases. The answer is Sunday. Sunday is our longest day at an average of 36 minutes and 23 seconds.
Wow, Friday's fast.
Fridays are fast.
Friday was that fast, though.
Friday was even faster before yesterday. Yesterday's games were long, Mark, and maybe that's why you had a feeling Fridays were long, because they extended Friday's average.
I have a
game
goldfish
time.
memory. Yeah.
But we get longer as the week goes on. I have a feeling teams are playing more and more careful when it comes to that second game, second win of the week. Question 1 out of the way. Prolly's the one who got it right. Question 2, let's see what we got. Largest goal deficit overcome to win in LCS. So as an LCS team, what is the largest?
Split. Okay. So
this split?
No.
You can rephrase this to largest
ever.
throw, right? This is rephrased to largest throw in the game.
That works too.
Okay.
I don't think there has been that large deficits, but I'm thinking it's either TL versus Golden Guardians or the CLG Immortals first game. So I'm going to go CLG Immortals and guess 4K.
Okay.
Wait, this is all time?
This is all time?
This is all time.
All
time?
All time.
Wait, I changed my mind.
No, you can't. We already
you're done.
clarified.
What?
We already clarified. You weren't paying
he
attention.
clarified it, and then you changed the rules on us, Crumbs, while you're talking.
I'm going to go, it was probably 12, 15K, and my guess would be a complexity game. Probably was in some stinkers.
Hey, they were high-quality late-game decision-making games. And I'm going to say it's probably one of our games, and I'm going with 13K.
All right. The two of you are very close. I'll give you the reveal here. It was Fox versus Apex back in 2016 summer.
Oh, wait, we had multiple choice?
Why didn't these flip over before? Well,
I would have got it wrong, though, because I would have voted for myself.
Here's the answer. Fox versus Apex 2016 summer. Fox was down 15K. 15K.
I think I remember that.
Minutes. They came back to win over the course of the next 14 minutes. Let's move on to question number 3. Hooney, since he's back in the league, we got to talk about him. Hooney's ISO deaths. Get as close as you can to his career ISO deaths without going over.
Price is
Right rules.
Oh, man.
Price is Right rules.
Is this multiple choice?
This is not multiple choice. It's Price is Right.
Price is Right.
Closest without. Stop asking clarifying questions.
This one's good. A good. Is it LCS or career? All
so it's
LCK
Korea too.
and
Yeah.
It says all time. LCS all time. LCS all time.
Oh, LCS only. Okay, so I'd probably say it's probably 80. He's played 6 or 7 splits. A couple of those were in best of 3 times.
All right.
Sounds over.
Mark's throwing out 80. So who wants to take it next?
40.
Oh, come on, that was my number. All right, then
Wow.
I'm going more under. I'm gonna go. Just kidding. I'm gonna go 50.
You go 1 if you want to
Go
go
41.
Under. Price is Right rules. What's happening? Have any of you ever watched that show?
You just need to go
No.
41.
Hey,
I've watched it. Doesn't mean I'm good at it.
You all disappoint me so much. The answer is 139. Mark is the closest with 80.
I can't believe
not
it.
going over. I'm actually
That's a
amazed
lot.
that none of you went over 100.
How many games has he
I
played?
thought, when you said 80, I was like, whoa, boy, that's a lot.
He's got a
of
lot.
deaths.
He's got a lot of ISO deaths.
I was scared to go triple digits. I was like, maybe I'll go triple digits. I was like, that sounds crazy. I'll just do 80.
At this point, he's played quite a few seasons. He's played 221 games in the LCS.
Oh, whoa, that's way more than I would have guessed.
You gotta take into account postseasons, right? Think about Immortals, right? When they were going deep into the postseason,
Lucian
even
died a lot.
Games. Lucian had a lot of. Maybe he was racking up 2 to 3 ISO deaths in a single game at some points. Yeah, he's died quite a lot. He's also killed quite a few people. All right, question number 4, our fourth and final question is going to be a B-roll question. So some video is going to pop up. You have to tell me what player this represents.
It's from Dignitas?
Well,
no,
you're
not
going to roll through
it's not
teams.
over.
Just watch the video, gents. It'll become clear.
I thought it was
I got it.
gameplay.
I got it. I'm ready. I'm
You
ready.
call it
I'm
out.
ready. I'm
Call it
ready.
out.
I'm ready.
Say it.
Dardoch.
No.
Is this?
That was last time.
They baited us. I know.
And last time was Dardoch when it was showing.
If they don't say it, can I go again?
Call it out when you think you have it. Crumb's already said Dardoch, and he's out. So it's between Probably and Mark.
What?
Oh, Golden Glue.
There it is.
Oh my God.
That's my boy Mark.
Teammate.
being the giveaway here at the
cuts.
end.
Keep
For
going.
those
Is
of
there
you-
more?
For those of you longtime LCS fans, you'll remember teammate days. That was it. Golden Glue's career. Now over on Evil Geniuses for a short stint. Well done, Mark. I think you got 2 out of 4 there with the prices
I had
right.
the 15K as well. I just had the teams wrong.
That's true. You did say 12 to 15K. You kind of gave a range.
Yeah, you gave a
Maybe-
huge range. That's
Did I say that much?
Yeah, you did say 12 to 15. But I was impressed by that range regardless. All right, let's move on from Jeopardash. Game 4, we've got another look at Immortals. And to learn about their history of the top laner, he's becoming a star. Here's Riv with Ornn, oversimplified.
Recently, Immortals has been turning heads with some unlikely roster swaps, one of which being a longtime top laner finally getting some much-deserved time in the spotlight. So for those of you who need a refresher, here's a crash course in the LCS's lovable top laner. In Ornn, oversimplified. Kieran Logue entered the league scene in the spring of 2015 on Zenith Esports, originally coming in as just a Wukong one-trick. Before it was cool, he would then hop around on amateur squads before landing on Echo Fox as a substitute alongside Demonte. It was there that he ran with the Academy squad, eventually making an unprecedented run in the 2018 Academy Spring Playoffs, where his catalog of tanks would push the squad to a 5-game final versus FlyQuest, where they would come up just short in the last moments. Ornn would eventually ditch the orange and be seeing green on Optic, where the attempts to replicate that success were lackluster. But that led to his first few shots on the LCS stage, but only after a rough start to the main Optic squad. Now, once again, after a rough start for Immortals, Ornn is picking tanks to support a squad that's fighting from the trenches. A calm, unassuming tank player, who much like the banjo, is a pleasure to see played well. And that's all you need to know. In Ornn, oversimplified.
I love you so much, Riv. Upset week could not have happened without some stars stepping up and when the team needed them most. I want to identify how they were a catalyst for those victories, those upset victories to begin with, but also what they can do to keep those performances going forward, because a lot of these teams still have a lot of climbing to do. Our players to watch this week are 100 Thieves' Contracts, Immortals' Smoothie, CLG's Pobelter, and Dignitas' Dardoch. Let's talk about our player of the week from last week, Contracts.
That's right. Contracts is really important for 100 Thieves, especially when it comes from the change away from Meteos. He's an early game focused jungler, really likes these scrappy style picks like the Olaf had the first win on Italy, and you can think of him as a blabber sort of player where he wants to be quite aggressive and he needs lanes to be able to assist him. This means pairing him with things like a Galio, putting Karmas on the roster, finding ways to have champions that can collapse into the jungle very quickly, like the Camille in their win against Cloud9. And as long as the lanes can collapse and help him be aggressive, he can give us the kind of show that Blabber does, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Contracts to me has the makings of a Blabber, right? I mean, he had the same origin story as Blabber, and I would love to see 100 Thieves index into him the same way that Cloud9 is indexed into Blabber. Moving right along to another person in the same position, but who kind of fills a very different role for their team, Immortals' Smoothie.
Yeah, Smoothie's kind of been a little bit of a chameleon this split. We're used to seeing Xmithie on these teams where he's playing the supportive champions, the Trundles, the Sejuanis, and it kind of allows his team to carry, and he just shows up for team fights like that. But now he's been playing the Graves, and I'll be honest, the showing he had on a carry jungler like Graves was really strong. And this is kind of a new look for him because on his team, he doesn't have these, superstar solo laners that he usually has. So him taking kind of the responsibility of like, I can do damage, I can do more, is something I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, I mean, he's always felt like he's had like that kind of superstar player, like you're saying, time with double lift, both on CLG and over here. Like and this team does not have that kind of player who's going to dominate, so he does need to take a little bit more of the carry onus himself. But he does have some really great performances on those champions.
Yeah, and we've seen already the team kind of looking towards those younger solo laners to put them on more stable, consistent champions like the Oriannas, the Malphites, setting somebody up like Smoothie for success. And we know he's got a Wicked Kindred and Nidalee game in there somewhere. Mark, let's move right along. Pobelter, the one-man army.
Yeah, that's a great word for him. It feels like he is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for CLG for getting their wins in terms of actual game-winning plays. Like that backdoor, he was threatening it so that his team could get the Elder Drake when no one else seemed to have the macro understanding of how to pull the enemy team apart. It always falls on Pobelter, it feels like. And that's not to say he's playing perfectly. He does make plenty of mistakes, but it feels like he's under a bit of a magnifying glass where every mistake that he makes is so bad for the team because he is also the only one who's making these game-winning plays. So I definitely want to see the rest of the team step up a little bit to give him a little bit more of a buffer, specifically in the top side. Even when Deus subbed in, they don't play around top well at all, and so they're always dying in top lane. They have the most isolated deaths as a team in top lane, as well as pre-15 deaths. Like, something's always going wrong up there, and so as a team, they need to stabilize their map a little bit more.
Give me some names, Mark. As a team, like who? Besides Deus, he's not even there anymore.
I kept names. No, Deus is gone now.
We need CLG.
All right,
Rune
to step up.
Rune.
More names.
Rune needs to step up. Wiggily needs to step up to help Pobelter out. There you go. I kept the names out of my mouth at first, but
Probably any names you want to add to the list?
More.
No, I want to just highlight those names. Same again, Mark. I don't know if people in the back heard it.
we got Wiggily and we need Rune. Step up, please.
There you go.
There it is. Top side of the map for CLG. Crumbs, talk to me about Dardoch and his pop-off performances.
So Dardoch is a player that has been really explosive when he came into the LCS or got back into the LCS. He's playing a lot of Graves, a lot of these carry-style junglers. Now, the thing that's interesting about him is that despite his mid laner being Fenix, he can really pop off when Fenix is playing Azir, but that's something that we're not really going to see out of him anymore. It's surprising that he even got that pick so many times. Now, when we saw him on TF, that was probably one of the worst TF performances of all time, and what we need to have around Dardoch for him to succeed is consistency from mid lane. Him and Fenix have been playing together for quite some time. We just need to see what happens when Fenix is not on Azir, since it should get banned, and when he's not on Twisted Fate, since it was just too bad.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially with Aphro and Johnsun playing so well already in the bot lane. Now you have a jungler who's working well. Top lane, I'm not quite sure what's going on with the Viper substitution. I was going to say Lorlo has been playing well, so I'm definitely also looking at Fenix to stabilize.
Yeah, that's a peculiar one, and we'll touch on that when we get towards that game a little, later in the day. But it's still an interesting change when things started to go so well for them. With all of that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at some predictions for the day, where the three of you land. The league was thrown into... Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you for really coming to the table with some differences today, gents. After last week, I was really hoping to see some interesting predictions. We have CLG as the call over Dignitas here in the first game of the day. Probably you've got confidence in a CLG after calling out names like that a moment ago?
Hey, just because I need them to step up doesn't mean they're not listening to me right now, okay? I'm pretty excited. I think Dignitas doing the top lane switch was really concerning for me. CLG, I do think Pobelter has a good idea of how to play the game, and I think he can crush Fenix, and I think that's kind of the linchpin that's going to be the decider in that matchup.
I just love how messed up today is after week 5 where everything just got flipped on its head. We no longer know what we're doing with predictions. We were so similar for so much of the split, and now we're like, that one, I don't know.
I gotta ask you guys, how do you guys still believe in TSM? To go in TSM versus FlyQuest when they...
Because I don't believe in FlyQuest at all.
I don't believe it
That's
either.
what it is.
FlyQuest play recently? At least TSM got a win yesterday. All right. But anyway, we got to get into some games here. So let's head it over to Freak and Ezreal to get ourselves into game 1.
Thank you very much, Dash. Welcome to the LCS Summer Split. I am Freak Ezreal. Are you ready?
God, how many times are you going to do this?
Every single week, every single time that I'm casting in the first game that I cast. So, we've only got a few weeks left.
That is funny to me now, too. because
It
it's
is?
so stupid. I'm like frustrated with myself that I'm smiling. I'm like, I know he's gonna do it. Yep, he's doing it. There it goes. You know.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I don't even think about doing it. It's just like, oh, the camera's coming. I have a line I have to say. Requires to put the script writer right. So, of course, we are here. I am Freak. Ezreal is there. And
True.
CLG is facing Dignitas. And I'm excited to see what happens. CLG, they had such a pleasant start to the split. They were tied for second early
Very
on. They are
pleasant.
still 5-5, which is such a huge improvement over the spring split. Speaking of improvement, Dignitas had that 2-0 week, and they subbed out the roster. They switched out top laners. Lorlo has over 4 times Viper's KDA in the LCS right now. Obviously, also a much higher win rate. So that surprises me, but I want to see what they can do.
It's interesting, right? You know, it has to be based off something, right? It has to be based off, we're assuming, scrim results. Maybe Viper has really been improving. You know, maybe they feel like he's fixed some of their issues, is going to offer them something specifically against these teams. You know, we have heard the analyst desk talking about the fact that CLG doesn't really focus on top side at all. Maybe Dignitas wants to do a top focus draft, and I think Viper would be suited better for that. It's all speculation, but at the end of the day, we will find out what is going to happen there. As for CLG, they did have a good start, but to be fair, you know, their losses are all against kind of the top teams, right? So they just had a schedule weighted more towards the second half. You know, when you look at their 3 straight losses to actually close out the first round robin, it was TL, TSM, C9. Right, that is 2 of the top 3 teams. TSM, you know, arguably third or whatever, depending on what your current power rankings are. Things are shifting around a lot, but you know, potentially 3 of the hardest teams in the league. They lost to all of them, fairly unsurprisingly. So. I do think that they have been relatively par for the course. You know, they were beating teams kind of below them in the standings and losing teams above them in the standings. So we'll see if they can actually, you know, make more of a surge in the second half to try to challenge some of those teams that are sitting at the top.
Yeah, and I mean, that's an interesting kind of thing to talk about is CLG, based on what we've seen in their 10 games so far, are decidedly a, like, 5th-ish place team. They are a middle-of-the-pack team, consistently beating, as you mentioned, teams they're better than, consistently losing to teams who are better than them, which I'm curious if they think that's a success, because they kept the same roster from Spring Split, barring the substitution from last week, and they went from a 3-15 team to a 5-5 team poised to go, you know, around 9-9 or 10-8, which is obviously like 2 or 3 times as good as last split. But is that good enough for them? Do they want to reach higher? Are they looking for that world spot? Everyone says yes, but is that realistic? I'm kind of curious what's in their minds. Either way, as we go further into the draft, Ashe is becoming a top-tier AD carry pick, so that's going over to Johnsun. We have seen Sett games from Viper up in the top side. In fact, his champ pool in the LCS is fully, you know, top lane damage-focused fighters, so we may see Dig, as you mentioned, play around top side of the Viper.
Will be interesting. Could also go to Dardoch. Theoretically, could go support, but I don't really expect it to be paired alongside an Ashe. Wouldn't make that much sense. But the Ashe I do actually really love as a pick. I think it's fully blind pickable. Doesn't really have any matchups that I think are untenable that you can't actually deal with in that bottom lane. It helps out jungle, and especially when you are against, you know, a really kind of jungle-focused style draft, which I think a lot of the Graves drafts really are. You know, they often become about, can Graves actually bully around your jungler? Can he be, you know, counter jungling in your face, constantly getting advantages in that way? And Ashe can help to stop that quite a bit, just using a hawkshot to scout out when you don't know where the Graves is, so your jungler can avoid them if they are in a disadvantageous matchup.
Definitely the case. Could be a lot of, you know, very, very good, obviously. I think Ashe is incredibly strong. It is Johnsun's most played. He's going to stay on that one as Orianna is locked in for Fenix. 3 mid lane bans aimed at him. Well, 2 Karma support with Ashe is actually very, very common. So 2 mid lane bans aimed at Fenix. Grabs the Orianna before the draft phase can ban more of them away from him, as I kind of picked at the Zoe that CLG grabbed right away. So it is CLG having to blind pick their mid laner. Dignitas get the opportunity to counter pick for top lane, leaving that Sett as a flex. So CLG going to be hard pressed to have either solo lane have a winning matchup.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what they can actually show us. I mean, Dignitas is coming off of the 2-0 week, as we were talking about earlier. It was very impressive, but one of the things that people were kind of detracting from that was both wins were with Fenix on Azir, right? And we need to see him perform on more champions from that. He didn't look as strong on the Morgana and definitely did not have a good game on TF. So now bringing out another new champion here for him in the LCS, we'll see if he can actually have a stronger game. I do always love to see Orianna paired with some sort of hard engage, and I wonder if we're going to get that, something maybe like, you know, a Nautilus or even a Ornn, or just some sort of way to actually have that go button to set up the shockwave. Can often make it much more effective. I think especially against someone like Zoe, like Graves, champions that, you know, with that hard engage you can very often lock down. It can be really, really powerful pairings with Orianna.
The only hard engaged support Afro has played this split is Leona. Otherwise, he is a lot of Thresh. Bard, they can engage, but they're not I put my body in champions typically. So Bard is his second most picked, goes for it yet again. So Sett is the one, right? Sett can ult whoever the melee champion is and then, carry the ball with him and go for the shockwave, but that is the only good target on Dig right now. We'll see what it ends up being as last pick comes through. That Sett remains flexible in top jungle. We haven't seen Dardoch play in LCS yet. We know he can play it though. It's not that hard to learn Sett jungle. And so we'll see now as CLG must pick their top laner, knowing it might be Sett, might be something else. And they're going to say, yeah, Ruin, you're still on tank duty. Enjoy the Ornn. We'll grab a support.
I'm pretty surprised by the Kennen ban from CLG, to be honest, because once Dignitas banned Malphite, that is a matchup that you would want to play Kennen into. So to me, that didn't actually signify that they were looking to play the champion. Kennen also is totally fine for Ornn. It's something that you can kind of withstand in the early game and then just become more relevant later on. So a little bit surprised by that, but the Kennen ban would suggest they think that the top lane has yet to be picked for Viper. I do think that Bard, though it is not attached to the ball to me and Shockwave off of me, you can set up in a similar way with the ultimate. If you hit an ultimate onto Zoe, onto Graves, and onto any of these carries, Fenix, if he can time it well, can set the ball on top of them while they are in that stasis, and then time the Shockwave right as they're coming out of that Bard ultimate, and that can be quite effective.
Yeah, definitely can be. Gonna be fun to see if that coordination works out here for Dignitas, and
Okay.
we are gonna get the Riven through. This is why they wanted Viper back in. You mentioned it, Ezreal. CLG does not play around top lane. Ruin is on an island, and what better champion to dominate an island than Viper on the Riven? We saw EG try this with Kumo before, and after dominating lane against CLG, they could not get the win. Dignitas picking the same champ against the other CLG top laner, saying we're gonna try this one again. And this time around, I think it's going to be a lot more successful. Viper is notably an amazing Riven player.
Yeah, this is his best champion by far, right? All of Viper's best games you think of are on the Riven. He has had some incredible carry performances, and I do like the substitution if this is your plan going forward. If you really want to focus, if it is specifically targeted towards a team that doesn't like to play around top lane. Now the question to me becomes, if you're CLG, can you adapt, right? Can you prevent the snowball up on that top side? Ornn is not always the easiest champion to actually snowball on, but I mean, if he is constantly getting focused, constantly getting 2v1, he is going to be put in a bad situation, and that's going to potentially allow Viper on this Riven to take over the game. So we have to see, can Wiggily help to protect Ruin up there? Can they shut down this Riven? Because Riven from behind is pretty worthless generally at the LCS level, especially when you're looking at some of these carries, which are pretty difficult to actually take down. You obviously have Graves, who can become relatively tanky, Ezreal with the Death Dance Iceborne type builds. A lot of these guys are going to be able to itemize pretty effectively against that Riven, so you generally have to play from ahead.
Yeah, I will say, though, in watching Viper's games on Riven so far, I haven't seen him need to dominate lane to be absurdly effective in team fights. The man has at least 20,000 games on Riven at this point in his League of Legends career.
That's insane.
And that means he will find those openings in mid-game, he will find those openings in team fight, and he'll be equal to an Ornn, and then do 3 times the crowd control and damage in a team fight. The damage, sure, you expect, but the man will find a 4-person flash Q knockup, and you'd be like, guess she's an engaged tank now. Viper will find those openings. I do not want to understate this. He has been having a hard time dominating in LCS. He hasn't been doing very well in Academy either. He's got a negative gold difference there as well. But on the Riven, it just hits different. The man will find an opening in mid to late game. And so my eyes are always going to be on this for the playmaking. I'm expecting at least one highlight reel clip in this game from him. Will it be enough to beat CLG? I do not know. But it's going to be a fun game to watch all the same.
And I like the call out of the Q Flash, right? Because I do think that Riven, when it comes to team fighting, Riven with Flash is basically a separate champion from Riven without Flash. Riven without Flash in a team fight is really going to struggle to actually ever get on top of these carries, to walk through the Nautilus and the Ornn, with the amount of damage that is actually required to be able to burst down some of these carries. You have to get on top of them instantly before you are getting knocked down yourself. So timing that Flash becomes incredibly important against the Riven, and I do think that that was one of the areas that we saw Kumo fall short on when he actually went to the Riven. I think the laning phase went great. They coordinated well with the jungler. They were able to pull off dives, but it is much more difficult to actually team fight on Riven. I think that is where you can often see kind of those highlight plays come out from the true Riven one-trick style players, the people who have so many games that they just see these opportunities, they see these openings, and they can land the combos perfectly to actually burst someone down.
So, early game is going as expected. Blue buff starts for both sides. Wiggily leashless, whereas Johnsun and aphromoo are actually team players and give Dardoch a bit of extra time there. So, early start is going to be nice for Sett. Great laning by Pobelter, by the way. Chunks Fenix down, but look, that is what you do on Bard. You learn W level 1, you drop some health packs down, you say, Fenix, take the most absurd trade you would like. It's okay, you've got 350 health waiting right behind you. Yes, it hurts the early laning on Bard. If you want to learn a second point in Q at level 3, it means you're without Magical Journey. But, end of the day, it is going to allow Fenix to feel a lot more comfortable in that mid lane.
Yeah, it is really nice, but honestly, you know, I don't think that's a trade you want to take with those health packs there or not. I think that was a pretty poor trade. But down on this bot side, did you get level 2 first? And we're going to have to be careful now. You know, it's one of those situations where it's like, it's essentially a potion and a half, right? Each one heals you for like 70, 75, whatever, depending a little bit on the setup that they do actually take with the runes and masteries and the stat shards. But, you know, essentially you have that extra potion and a half, which is very, very valuable. You still want to try to have these slow extended trades where you're chipping away at someone. Pobelter is actually just playing Corrupting Potion, so very likely Time Warp Tonic too here. And he's going to have a lot of sustain, so we'll see if Fenix can actually keep the wave away from his turret, because in those types of situations, to get advantage of those extra health shrines, you need to keep them from pushing you in fully and resetting. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to matter if you have a couple more potions in the bag when he goes back to base.
Spell Thief Summoner used right there for Pobelter. Tries to get a little bit of poke towards Fenix. Gets another exhaust there as well, so even more to run with. Otherwise, yeah, no big problem there. Early gold lead because of the lane pushes on both sides. Right now you've got Ruin with a very big CS lead, but look at that. It's 15 minions for Viper to kill. Won't even drop any of the melees there. Easy auto, couple of Qs. He should be able to catch up and farm, no problem. They weave them all down, but Pobe maybe wants it on the mid lane. He got Wiggily nearby as well. He's blind, has to burn the flash. Gets away from a little bit of the damage. Ultimately down to 200 HP, and Fenix having a rough time in the mid lane. Does have TP to burn if he needs it, and can get back to lane without too much difficulty.
Critically was able to avoid the sleep. You know, that would have been a death sentence if he did actually get tagged with it, but still, that is a great gank from CLG. It's not even like Wiggily spent any time waiting around. He just kind of walked straight through mid lane on his way towards bot, and shot at the mid laner a couple times, gets the flash out. They didn't expend any summoners whatsoever, so things looking very good for this Graves in the early stages. If you can actually put Fenix even further behind, it gives Graves more ability to play aggressively, more ability to invade, because Pobelter can then control that mid lane and be there as backup if you do actually need him.
Yeah, so far the lanes are all equal, basically identical CS across all roles, as top lane scraps briefly. Decent damage out of Viper, gets grasped back, but does decent damage over to Ruin all the same, as the recall and TP came through for Fenix. Recall and TP comes through for Pobelter. He's got Spellbook, so it's going to be a real summoner before too terribly long anyway. And yeah, very similar buys on both sides. Boots plus double Thorin's Ring versus a lot of early potions and a Corrupting on the Pobelter side.
Yep, Pobelter just kind of really going towards the sustain. A lot of people are liking Spellbook. This is kind of becoming one of the premier rune choices in pro play. You can see that Riven is actually just having to go back to base though, with the wave in a little bit of an awkward spot. You know, he didn't actually want to risk fully pushing it in. The wave will eventually come back towards him because it was over closer to Ruin's tower, meaning the minions would stack up faster over there and eventually push back. But you could see, you know, if he stays around, you are in that kind of dangerous position, because anytime as a top laner, when you're right outside of your opponent's turret and you're struggling to get that wave pushed in, you're so susceptible to ganks, you're so susceptible to roams, and Riven is going to have to respect the potential of that, but is able to get the call through.
Here, Smite was used early by Wiggily. No, Wiggily. Loses the big chicken. Dardoch grabs it, flashes the flare, says, thanks very much, that's mine. Good sleep on a Fenix is reasonable damage. The mana summonerless and already out of mana. Fenix having a very hard time in mid lane. He's been keeping up in farm, but the health bar betrays how close that lane is. Pobe has to flash away a real one. Burn. A shockwave came through. Good play out of Fenix. Nothing else to do though.
It's kind of problematic now, though, that he is actually out of mana. He can stay around now, but Pobelter's like full, right? So it's actually pretty risky if you take a bad trade. You could be losing a lot of minions. You know, I'm sure he would like to try to wait around as long as he can to recall on a cannon wave, so he loses less, if possible. But he has been getting pressured very heavily, and you know, it's kind of the second recall that you usually start falling behind on, not the first, because you have teleport for the first time. Second time when you go back to base, you know, if you base at a poor timing, you're just losing those minions. You're falling behind in experience, and it does obviously get a lot harder to last hit some of the minions under tower when you don't have any mana, when you're completely reliant on just auto attacks. You know, there are some minions that are going to be at awkward health amounts, and they can be kind of difficult without spells to grab.
Oh, wow, TP burn. They're going for the play on the mid, but the magical journey is already there. Stixxay just doing it to get back to lane. You know, put a little pressure, put the fear of Stixxay into him. Pobe wants some damage on the level 6 Sett, which is not going to mean a whole lot. Get some damage. You know, it's something down there, but it's not going to mean a whole terribly ton. Good thing for CLG, though, is the blue buff is up, and Pobelter got the smite. So this should be a very easy grab, and doesn't want to burn it. He has to. But Sett comes in. This is the big play. Gets a stun. A lot of damage on a Pobe, who jumps over the wall, comes right back in, though, and first blood goes through. That's a pickup there on the, I was going to say Cloud9 side, as the flare comes up, and Dignitas says, yeah, our early game's good enough. Viper, by the way, has TP'd down, and that means Mountain Drake is absolutely going to Dig's side.
Dignitas are going to be able to grab that. Nice play, as they didn't have mid lane prio, and Pobelter got pretty aggressive. It looked like it should have been an easy blue steal, but they took a fair bit of time on the exit here. They maybe could have just early smited and tried to run straight away, but a great engage here from Wiggily. Smoothie flashes out, but Wiggily and Pobelter both get clapped together, and there's no escaping there from Pobelter, as he actually had his flash forced by the earlier shockwave, so paying off there on that earlier gank attempt by Dardoch, and they're going to be able to grab Dragon and even out the gold a fair bit here, but it does show you just how heavily farm was going in the opponent's advantage when you're still down 500 gold this early after grabbing first blood.
The Spellbook Bard goes to the top side of the map, and Dignitas already pulling the trigger to move the lanes around. Riven's just, TP down for the Drake, says, okay, I will just stay landing in the bot side. Let's move the duo lane up top and push some pressure around on that side of the map. CLG now going to match those duo lanes. And that is interesting to me that they've moved everything around, but it does mean that the duos are now on the Rift Herald side of the map with Drake gone.
Yeah, we'll see who wants to try to make the move towards it if both teams are going to look to try to actually fight. The problem with actually doing this for Dignitas is now they either have to force immediately or they're going to start losing stuff on the bottom side, because even though you move your bot lane top, you don't have TP on Viper. He TP'd for the Dragon, so they have got to be able to immediately start the Rift or accept that they could be in a 4v5. It looks like they really want to start it, but as soon as Viper shows bot lane and he's heading there to actually pick up that minion wave, they could get engaged on, so I don't think Dignitas are really in a position to try to even look to take this.
Wiggily comfortable, flashes in for damage, chunks into land, not quite the bubble though, and Pobe is not going to find the damage. Dardoch will survive it. Flash is going to force the enemy jungler away. It will not get any kills, but it does mean, as you mentioned, CLG get to retain control in the top river, and they're going to grab, almost on spawn, the first Rift Herald of the game.
I honestly don't even like that the Dignitas tried for the Rift Herald. I think after you took the Dragon and you expended your TP, you shouldn't have even moved, because it's actually Viper who's lost some of the minions, running up and down over and over a couple times there, as he had to try to answer the wave, and no Ruin has TP. Dardoch also is going to lose a little bit of pressure out on the map because he gets chunked low there. Obviously, he does survive, so it's not the end of the world, but I struggle to see a situation in which Dignitas would ever be able to take that Dragon, so I just don't think it's a play worth going for, right? Just take what you can get, farm it up on that bottom side. CLG is now going to be looking for first turret here and should be able to grab it easy peasy as they have that Rift Herald, and turret's already very low, and there's not much chance. Oh, nicely timed ultimate there from aphromoo.
Yeah, prevents the Herald from getting the charge damage in, so no plates get dropped. That is always really powerful. They're going to get at least one plate dropped down, so some money shared across the three of them. But yeah, that is basically the entire turret saved as a result of that ulti at aphromoo.
Yeah, that's actually really impressive. I always forget about that interaction, in the moment, but it is something that I've seen Aphro do a lot, and it is very, very effective to actually go for on Bard, because he pretty much negated the whole Rift Herald, right? Like, that would have been a guaranteed turret, and clearly CLG forgot about it also. Otherwise, you wouldn't have dropped Rift at the Bard turret. You would have actually saved it to drop on a recall, or even just drop it mid lane for additional turrets, because you only got one plate. They got like part of a plate, essentially, with the Rift Herald.
Yeah, and that is, the expected value of Herald a lot lower than that, right? The actual value lower than the expected value is the way that's actually supposed to be phrased. CLG, though, still got to say, they are up 1,000 gold overall as a team. The 3 plates, actually 4, to be fair, that their dual lane has taken. 1 on the bot side, 3 in the top side. That's obviously half that lead, as well as farm leads in top and momentarily in mid. Viper, again, currently down in farm, so without, again, having to TP away from his own lane. And honestly, to me, as I've watched his games, not worried about that. Before, I was like, oh, you're picking Riven to be a lane bully. That is not how the Viper games have gone. It's you farm close to equal, and then mid game comes around, and your mid game spike is what you play around.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times Riven is a pretty situational pick. When you talk to a lot of Riven players, you know, for them it's more about what the other team is bringing as far as CC, right? Because that is really where Riven can struggle. I do think it can be tough playing into this type of composition, though, because there is a fair bit of CC between the Nautilus and the Ornn that you're going to have to get through. But CLG is moving 4 members top. They're looking for the dive.
Hard diving. Ulti's going to come down, turning off the turrets. Q's still going to land, though, onto poor Bard, and aphromoo is gone. Ruin's up to the top side of the map. Turret's alive, though, and Fenix is reinforced. His plate is low. Flash engage. Ruin's not going to land it. Doesn't want to hold Turret Dogger just yet. Pobelter nearly lands the Paddle Star, but Johnsun has nowhere to run. No ulti, no summoners. Has a healing bubble, but he's got no health bar, and Ruin going to claim a kill as this turret's going to lose plate number 4. CLG send 5 to the top side, and they're rewarded with 2 kills.
Nicely done, and they are looking to continue pressuring this because they still have a lot of members up here, but Riven is going to be taking turret plates down on that bottom side, so trying to get something back for himself. I do think aphromoo and Johnsun actually did a good job of surviving for quite a long time there. I would have expected from that play for CLG to be able to take the actual turret itself, not just get another plate, but Johnsun ended up surviving a really long time because aphromoo did have a really well-timed ultimate and kind of gave up his own life to protect the marksman there. And again, I feel like aphromoo has been on point. You know, 2 ultimates this early on in the game, both very effective, and they're defensive ultimates, which I think can be very tricky to actually use effectively on the Bard. So credit to him. He's been having, I think, a really great season thus far. It feels like aphromoo is having a bit of a resurgence alongside Johnsun and really kind of looking back on form because he won MVP a while back and had been kind of, I think, a bit on a downturn, you know, having more of a struggle. But even on a 2-8 team, aphromoo has stood out. Like, he has been in a position where oftentimes as a sport you're putting your life on the line, and he's been able to kind of walk that line of playing aggressive without actually dying too much, which I think is very, very difficult to actually do when you're almost always playing from behind, as Dignitas is.
Yeah, I want to give credit where it's due, because one of the topics I've seen brought up in the community a lot is, why are these teams signing old, washed-up players who aren't good anymore? Why aren't you giving the new young guns more of a chance? And, you know, off the last 2 or 3 spots of aphromoo seemed like he was in that camp, right? Of players that are getting spots, but why? And aphromoo has the 3rd most games in the LCS. He's like 2 games behind Bjergsen and like 20 behind Wild Turtle. He's top 3, and it's like he's way up there, right? The man is an absolute veteran. But credit to him where it's due, he has turned it back around, right? He's one of the top 3 supports in the league right now, I would say. I think that's a fair spot to put him in. And that is off of him continuing to work hard to keep up with the game, to improve, and you know, help bring Dig to the wins they do have. They're so close to a few more. They're close in this game. He's one of the better performers in this one, though they are behind. And I want to give him the shout out that you know, in his very, very long career, he's still remaining a top player again.
And that's why I think, to me, it's always been less about like how old are you or how long have you been around, and more about how motivated is this player still, right? You know, oftentimes the age and how long you're around is linked to motivation, because players, it's difficult to actually stay motivated to grind and to work as hard as you possibly can at that top level to stay relevant as a top pro when you've been doing it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. That's tough. And that's what needs to be looked at, you know, more than just the age of the player or how many games they've played or those types of things. And also, you know, playing alongside a young player like Johnsun, it's going to be very beneficial for these young players to actually get that additional experience and the insight from veterans, and that's something lots of people talk about. But nice shockwave there, catches Pobelter.
Shockwave. Pobe, he's going to try to get away, but he's still getting pulled back in. Dardoch has the ult if he needs it, doesn't burn it, and that means Pobe's flash gets him out of range. I think the ult wouldn't have killed from Dardoch, so not wrong to hold Dispel, but flash does get Pobe out, burning a couple of summoners, including, I believe, a spellbooked Ghost. Does live, though, all the same, and we go back to this mid-game now, where Dig have 2 Drakes to none. The gold lead is still with CLG. Now an anchor toss in from Smoothie, gets big damage on a Dardoch, puts the shield back up, gets ignited though, and gotta be careful. Rooftop Barrage won't quite land, can't land any of the ultis. Dardoch running for dear life, just barely stays alive. Arrow tank to the one side. Viper is in for the kill, and a Smoothie wants in for more. Ruin gonna run away. Pobelter's very, very low, but Ruin's gonna get away. Now Johnson's being chased down. Wiggily wants in. Careful, because here comes Dardoch, and it's, oh my gosh, it is not enough. 2 more kills in his
there
CLG.
Goes Dardoch.
There goes Dardoch.
Oh man, Dardoch hex flashing, looking for the hero play there, but they're way too healthy. You're not going to turn that around with a 10% HP Ashe and a 10% HP jungler there for the Sett. So Still, they're not a bad play overall for Dignitas. It does end up going more in CLG's favor, though. You know, they're the ones kind of getting that extra kill. Viper did come down, picks up a kill for himself, almost able to get Pobelter, but it looked like he couldn't quite connect with the R after his flash. Either way, was a nice little set of exchanges there, but
it was.
I do think that Dardoch should have just kind of backed it up, right, and make it that 1-for-1.
Yeah, end of the day, obviously that did become a punish at the very end with those two coming through. So it is CLG remaining ahead in this game. About 4,000 gold up. Next Drake spawns in a minute 20. We'll say they're bleeding Drakes. That doesn't mean too terribly much always. I've found a lot of times Dragon Soul has not led to a victory. It feels like it's maybe in some cases overrated. Obviously strong, obviously good, but a lot of the times you'll see if the team comp outscales, they outscale regardless of Dragon Soul. Here we go, though. TP coming to the bottom side as Ruin needs to defend bot lane turret. Second Herald goes to CLG as well as Johnsun and Afro get some damage across. True Shot Barrage helps clear the wave. Turret stays alive for now.
I do think oftentimes, you know, it's kind of more decided by, like, because we're seeing sometimes super early game teams pick up a soul, and it's like, okay, well, if you're at a massive late game disadvantage, it's not going to be made up for that. Another nice Bard ultimate. That is so annoying for CLG.
Oh, man. Speaking of annoying, poor Sett's in a bad spot. Gets a big punch off on 3, but has nowhere to go. Gets a stun.
Oh, Shockwave.
Shockwave and almost the arrow. You got to be kidding me, Dardoch. He almost lives through it, but it is 2 kills, and Viper wants number 3. Takes damage, finds the stun. aphromoo over the wall, grabs the kill, and Ruin doesn't have a lot of places to go. Does have flash, and he misses it. It was a bait. Viper went the wrong way, but there is no way out for this Ornn. The Riven flank comes in, and Dignitas win a fight 4-1.
Let's go, Dignitas. Wow, that was such a good shockwave there. Dardoch with his dying breath, clapping the members of CLG together as Fenix is able to actually land the shockwave. You know, it did pull them slightly out of the arrow coming through from Johnsun, but that is a huge fight, closing the gold gap enormously and also getting them the 3rd dragon. You know, that is something that that is where I get worried about Soul. 2 feels like, it's okay. You know, you can kind of challenge later on. When a team gets up 3-0, it's just one thing has to go wrong in the game, and they have Soul. So here it is one more time. Again, Afro. His Bard ults have been so on point, and not in the way you would think. You know, it is kind of those defensive ones. Dardoch was trying to Hex Flash over that wall. Not sure if you can even clear it. I think it may be too big, but positions himself well. 3 members pulled in, and Pobelter was actually R-ing forward there to get tagged with it also. Then Viper just flying in, gets exhausted, doesn't matter, can get back on top of Stixxay there and take him out. And then Ruin here, not able to flash the wall. Viper just goes around to cut him off. No way for him to escape. And Dignitas get 4 unanswered kills there, plus the dragon. So really well played.
Yeah, single trade kill came through as Dardoch got killed by Ruin. The ulti landed on him, but yeah, a 4-1 team fight is great, and the gold lead has shrunk drastically. Yeah, no problem there. 2,500 now the only difference. And this is eerily similar to when they fought back in week 2 or so. Hold that thought. Wiggily wants to push back Viper and will do so. As Demolish comes through, the bot lane turret will crack. But when they met the first time around, back when this was the Froggen lineup, this was a solid 5,000 gold lead at 30 minutes, and then CLG came back with better late game plays. This is CLG 4,000 gold ahead at 15 minutes, and Dignitas now finding their way back into this one with some good mid-game plays. Dardoch set up for the shockwave, Viper came in for the flank, good team fighting overall. Still some work to be done. Again, gold difference is there. Scores back to 3,000 as turrets fall. Dignitas, though, of course, on Soul Point.
Losing 2 towers there does hurt, obviously. And Johnsun is kind of falling fairly far behind. You know, that's kind of my major concern for Dignitas right now. Stixxay is in such a better position at this point. You know, he's already on his 2-item spike. Ashe has still quite a ways to go to actually get to that point. So, you know, is going to be greatly outpowered by the Ezreal. You know, if there's any sort of fights going on right now. You know, Ezreal in general almost always is a lot stronger on 2 items than most other marksmen, and this is just going to be even more extreme as he is quite a bit up in gold. But we will see as Riven is going to be quickly completing that Death Dance, and that is really where you get fully online, where you can start to really take over in a lot of these fights. Death Dance making you so much more tanky, and you know, one of the reasons that it's so particularly good on Riven is simply because with high CDR, you're able to spam out your E. That shield is actually absorbing a lot of the Stance Dot. We'll see if Fenix can chase down Pobelter, though.
He dodges the bubble, dodge second Q, double TP coming in. Now the junglers are here as well. Stixxay instantly Arcane shifts away, and the TP was canceled as Ruin ults and prevents Viper from showing. Wasn't going to matter too much all the end of the day, but yeah, didn't know that when he first pressed R, so, you know, follows through on the job as aphromoo is just clearing wards, and a Scuttle is under a fire.
You know, I wonder if that could have been communicated by Ruin, you know, because I feel like if Stixxay knows that the Viper TP is going to be canceled, you can actually go forward. Orianna doesn't have Shockwave, and that is just a tank set there. So if you're actually posturing aggressively instead, you know, if Pobelter is moving forward and the Ezreal TP comes through and you actually shift in on the Orianna, I'm not sure if that could be punished or not. That's obviously a hard call to make, but something that, you know, could have turned into a big win. I mean, if CLG wins a fight up there around the Baron area at this point in the game, that can just be Baron.
Yeah, that could have been a real thing. That's a good point. And yeah, even though, yes, he had cast the ult early, it's like, oh, no, I got this cancel. There's no way he can stop me. Don't worry, he's not coming topside. Yeah, that's a relevant call out. And maybe that fight should be a little bit differently as a result. Regardless of the state we are in, Viper is TP-less as Drake is coming up in 113. The Baron is already alive. CLG still feel like the team with map control. They have not lost a single turret. They have lost Drakes. They have lost kills. Those are the only objectives Dig have gotten so far. And the farm is honestly good in basically every single war. Even the support is getting more farm. And the only difference really is
one
CSD and top is the closest one.
Yeah. Well, one CS between support if you're going to put that one out. So you take that back, freak.
Hey, division score is 5 apart, though. So even if that ties up, I still think Smoothie's better.
Okay, yeah. Just clapping him, absolutely.
That's better than CSD for me.
How many points do you get for denying 2 Rift Trails, though? Does that give you some sort of, like, extra score, you know?
You know, that's fair. That's gold in the pockets that you didn't think about. That's a fair point, actually.
That's a -2 kills for the other team.
That's -2 kills. Meanwhile, -1 kill on the Viper as he's going to be waking up, but he is 1 versus 5. He is slowed. He is flashing. He is not getting knocked up. He's going to get a lot of space here. He's drowsy. The flash get away. Anchor's going to land. He's trying to run for his life. He just might do it. The ulti in for Nautilus, but he's not in range of anyone else. Viper gets away. 17 ults are burned, but he makes it away. He's a slippery snake. But now it's time for the play in the mid lane. This is not good. Fenix going to get rebirthed in 43 seconds. Goodbye to Dragon Soul. Your mid laner is gone. He had flash, but the bubble caught him.
Yeah, Fenix got absolutely destroyed there, and I'm not sure that they could have actually fought for it either way, as Riven did have to, you know, blow the ulti and flash and everything in retreat, but Fenix dying there is pretty concerning, and that is that Death Dance Riven, man. You get so tanky. You have so much CDR to be able to spam out these move blocks, to be able to spam out the shield and absorb the Death Dance dot that is actually coming through, and Riven is very, very frustrating to deal with on this 2 items. Does actually have a stopwatch now to boot, so going to be even more difficult to take down, but it's kind of funny how hard it was to kill the Riven and then how instantly Fenix just exploded. It's like, one champion has a death stance, one champion does not. Let's see who survives.
I mean, one champion is Riven with about 5 blinks on a 4-second cooldown.
I know.
I know. I mean, death stance, to be fair, is a very strong item. That is obviously quite relevant. But yeah, that feels a little champ difference to me. Regardless, top's cleared out.
True. All right, so they do stop the soul. You know, good play from CLG. That is something that you would be somewhat concerned about. I don't think that, you know, this soul is actually like the most concerning for this team. You know, the flat move speed is always really nice, and that's something that people often overlook. They just talk about the actual, you know, kind of proc of move speed on your ultimate. The only people that I think are really going to be excited about that, you know, potentially Fenix with phase rush, you can kite things out, but like Riven is the big winner, I would say, for that. Maybe Johnsun too. Having that move speed burst after the ultimate can be quite effective, but 10% flat move speed, still a big deal, but not the end of the world. It's not one of those ones that feels like just a GG. If you do give it over, like sometimes Cloud, sometimes Ocean does feel by comparison.
Right, yeah, if you can't one-shot people during Ocean Drake, it's like, well, they're just sustained, you know, the entire fight, and I guess it's over because no one dies, so rip that one. Yeah, this one, certainly comebackable. Still, gold difference remains 2,500, and again, he's asleep. This is big damage. He'll stay alive, though, puts the shield up, and Dardoch is mostly fine. True Shot Barrage. It's annoying. Honestly, you can just recall. It's not going to be that big of a deal. No really important ults were burned for that one. True Shot Barrage comes back before too terribly long. Not a huge issue there as farm keeps coming through into mid lane. aphromoo not quite done on his support item just yet. 26 minutes in, actually still not done. Stixxay caught out. This could be the play. Can they land shotgun? Can they land much else? Arrow's going to come through. Not going to land that one easy. That was too late from Johnsun. Bad timing on the Ashe. Yes, he had QSS. He could have always gotten away, but still, that arrow was late. End of the day, it's going to be reset.
At the very least, they do get the flash, though, off of Stixxay. But Stixxay and CLG are actually just going to head over here and start up the Baron. It is going down fairly quick, but Dignitas does seem aware of it. So it will be a fight if they want to actually commit to this. But it's getting really low here.
Okay, this is going to be a big moment there. Pope can't quite get in. Dardoch wants forward. Ulti's up on 3 of Dignitas, and actually all 5 for CLG's side. Here comes the Ornn going for the play. aphromoo is low. Knockup only on a Sett. Knockup hits Viper, not a big deal either. Smoothie now the target, pulls one back in, and Dardoch can only get 1 for 1 as Viper gets that kill. So 4v4 on the map. Fenix comfortable but low on mana, can push in and not do much else. Out we go, mid lane under fire. Johnsun gets to get some health and CS back. The turret should fall. Dignitas going to be on the board with turret kill number 2.
Dignitas closing the gold gap here quite a bit after that, but definitely don't like that flash from Fenix at all. You know, he was pretty much out of mana. He had no shockwave, and you flashed in to try to, like, who are you trying to finish off there? Ornn was at like 30%, 40% health, and it's an Ornn. No one else was low, so that was a little bit bizarre. Besides that, pretty happy with how Dignitas was able to actually play out that team fight. Viper did not have flash, and they were able to navigate that successfully anyway. His flash is going to be up for that next team fight, and there won't be a flash on Stixxay. Pobelter doesn't have one right now. We don't know if it's going to be up if he spellbooks over, but when Riven has flash ult, level 16, which is approaching, and a stopwatch, like that is, you know, the triumvirate there of playmaking, and we could see what Riven will be able to get done. But CLG still controlling the map for the most part, and Death Dance going to be coming up here for Stixxay, which is going to make him incredibly difficult to actually burst down. You know, he already has the Iceborne. He didn't elect to go tabbies, went more for that CDR route. And you know, the cooldown reduction on your summoner spell is pretty nice on Lucidity too, but we'll see if he can survive.
Yeah, if you're getting Frozen Fist, I would never go tabbies. I just don't think you need 20 armor when you've already got 180. You know, more or less in your build, but the MR obviously helps a lot against Fenix here, who does not have much flat pen, so he's going to be pretty durable. Now a pull back towards Smoothie, drops him to 2K as he pops Stone Plate. Dardoch takes a bit of damage, but not too much difficulty. Once again, Dragon Soul is available in 20 seconds for Dignitas. As Bubble comes in, can't quite find the target, but Dig wants to play around the bottom side. Viper is 16, he has TP, he has Flash. If he needs to join, he can. We'll see when he does, because Dragon is up in 10 seconds, and Dignitas must want to fight with all 5. Mid lane already pushed into the turret. Viper is going to burn TP now. Back into CLG's red buff. It's going to be a deep flank.
He is 16 now, so he did get that. We'll see if he can actually surprise them with an angle that he can come from. But if he doesn't start heading over now, I mean, the fight could just break out, and you might not actually get there in time to really have a big difference. He does have his GA also, so that is actually huge. Viper is on an incredibly big power spike, and they are going to try to bet it all on this team fight.
Okay, big chunk comes in. Smite Fight's going to come through. Picked up there by Dardoch, and the battle has begun. A lot of damage to the Viper, but he's got GA. That one's popped down. In the front line, the knockdown Ruin. 5v4 for Dignitas. Health bars are low, though they got to be careful. Through the magical journey they go. Just barely the escape. aphromoo gives his team the smooth escape. They get the Dragon Soul, and they get out.
Nicely done. It does cost him the GA. Viper was flashed down now, too, so he doesn't have the GA, doesn't have the flash. CLG do have more health right now, so they're going to have priority on the map, but they can't actually start up the Baron, and Dignitas do get the kill. They get the soul, so they're going to be sitting in a pretty nice spot. I'm going to be interested to see if Viper is able to use this extra move speed on the Cloud Soul to kind of circumvent the fact that he doesn't have flash, you know, if it will make a big enough difference there, or if it is just still too much with the CC, because we did see how easily he can be locked down as he tried to come in on that flank. He really just got rooted up and pretty much died before getting much of anything done, as Graves and Ezreal, you know, were able to really focus him down. And Pobelter has a much more aggressive build than Fenix. He already has the death cap upgraded here from Ornn, so he's always going to be dealing a lot of damage also.
Yeah, we just haven't really seen CLG be able to play the poke game. Zoe Ezreal is so trademark for, yeah, you know, we're going to poke you out, push off objectives, and this really hasn't been happening so much. It's honestly been very flat-out team fights where, you know, Dardoch pulls the trigger, Viper goes for the flank, Fenix falls up with a shockwave, and you're just brawling instantly, and it's up to CLG to try to land as much damage as they can. As Dignitas keep clawing back in, the gold difference is now only 1,000. We've just been decreasing that difference time after time after time. It's a slow, steady decline for CLG's lead. Dignitas looking toward a 3-game winning streak with their other top laner back in the lineup. A lot of that is, yes, he's able to play Riven. That's not going to be likely available every single time, but so far, so good. Dignitas able to weather a very rough early to mid game, and their late game team fighting is looking solid. As we've mentioned, they've got Soul. At this point, I would probably say they are favored to win the game just based off the scoreboard at the top of the screen. and this is looking good.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is it's like, okay, you can say, sure, ban out the Riven, but if people are really worried about Fenix's Zir, you start having, you know, more players that have these kind of signature picks. You know, maybe you really don't want to give Dardoch Graves after he's had some strong games on that. If you don't want to give Fenix's Zir, you got to be worried about that. Now you have Viper Riven. You know, you can't ban everything. And then there are also just flat meta picks that are incredibly strong that no one wants to give over. So it does become difficult, and it's kind of an interesting draft adaptation. You know, this is something that we've talked about a lot in the past, the idea of having almost like these ringer-style players who are really specialized in one area, and this feels like a little bit of that. And I'm going to be curious to see where Dignitas does take it going forward. But CLG still not out of this game, obviously. 3 items plus QSS done on Stixxay. He's going to be so hard to actually knock down. And Ornn is ridiculously tanky. So really, I do think a lot of it is going to be dependent upon the initial punch in that fight from Dignitas. You know, can they land the shockwave? Can they land the arrow and try to burst someone out?
Yeah.
And also, can CLG do a better job of actually being first to an objective? Because I feel like a lot of the times, the reason they're not actually getting to land that poke prior to the fight is because they're never the ones there first. It's always Dignitas that has been at the dragon first with vision, and they're the ones usually, you know, starting the fight because they're the ones forcing them to come to them and set up around that dragon. If you have all vision denied and Dignitas has to check into you over by that Baron, you know, through all the Ezreal Qs, through all the Zoe poke, that gets really, really hard then for Dignitas to take a fight afterwards.
Right, and normally I wouldn't care as much. Obviously, yes, you want vision control, don't get me wrong. It's not going to favor CLG if you don't have it, but it's even more important when you are a poke team, right? When you have Zoe bubbles going through walls, that's when you really want the ward network. This comp really, really wants ward control more than other comps do. It's really skewed in that way towards CLG. So, yeah, them this time around, I will say, they do have it around this Baron area. They've got 2 deep wards, at least in the jungle. One of them turned off now, but they are going for the play. Big damage coming through. Ruin is around. Viper waiting to join this fight, but he's in the bot lane with teleport. Hasn't burned it just yet, though, so it's a 4v5. Here comes the TP. Here comes Tempered Fate, stopping 2. Wiggily has to get outside of the pit. Here comes the re-engage. Ruin is taking, goes the burst. You gotta be kidding me. Another smite still in for Dardoch. Baron buff on Dignitas. Shockwave catches 2. That's 2 kills picked up right now. Dignitas are trying to walk over this one. Wiggily attacks the ward, gets over the wall, but so does Viper. Blast Plant gets him right back out. And Riven's got to buy some time. The cooldowns are back. Dardoch wants back in, finds slows on a Pobelter. Looks for a bit more. The exhaust is on the punch. One more will kill him, and Viper is unstoppable. Deathless in this game as 3 kills come through. Dignitas get every single objective, and CLG have nowhere to go. Dardoch's going to live through this one, and how does CLG get away? Dig have completed the comeback. 2 are pushing down the mid lane as the inhibitor turret is going to be cracked as well.
Aphro just needs to stop them. They're actually trying to end the game here, I think, potentially. If you can stop both Stixxay and Wiggily from actually getting back to base, it's only Smoothie there defending right now. And Stixxay is going to get shockwaved in, but is so tanky, they won't be able to actually end as Graves gets back to base, can help to clear this out. It is going to be Elder spawning in 45, and it will be, again, a fight around that Dragon Pit. So Vision going to become so important, but Dardoch was just looking so comically fast in that fight, proccing the phase rush, smites for Nimbus Cloak, has the dead man's. This man is just zooming through the fights here, plus the flat move speed on that Cloud Soul. The setup here was fairly good. Use that Bard ulti to actually buy time. You know, does land the stun there over onto Ruin, and then just focusing down the front line, honestly, while Dardoch is, look at him, just sprinting forward, trying to create this zone of control, you know, not committing onto Wiggily, knows he can't win the 1v1, but he's just trying to zone him. So he moved forward and then just back up to try to keep that area controlled. And then in comes Dardoch here. They got that chase down onto Pobelter, and it is the Elder Dragon that has now spawned. Viper has flash, and GA is active again here. He also has the Edge of Night complete, so he's going to have that spell shield. And we'll see if Viper can find an angle. He is looking to wrap around.
Level 18 Riven, ulti up, flash up, can make the big play. Credit where it's due to the aphromoo for a lot of the team fight setup. Perfect KP, only 1 death. Good stuff on the Bard. Now, once again, look at the play. Ward's down for CLG. Gonna make him a bit afraid. Viper dodges some skill shots, look for the re-engage. Aphro goes for the setup. Pobelter gonna burn Zonia. Sett into the back line. He's gonna find a decent amount of damage, but Dardoch has to be respectful. Gets knocked into the air, gets a shield, a big punch, and does go down. Smoothie gonna be traded though, 1 for 1. Viper in the back line, finds the stun, tries to do the setup, loses Guardian Angel. CLG's re-engage isn't going to be enough. Knockup is too early. Viper goes right back in, and Ruin is not long for the world. 2 more kills coming through, and now it's again only 2 alive on CLG. Dignitas win fight after fight after fight after fight, and it's time to go into the mid lane. 40 seconds of the respawns for the solo lanes, meaning it's a very long time of 4 versus 2, then 4 versus 3, as Dignitas wants into the Nexus right now.
We'll see if they can close it here. Stixxay and Wiggily, they've got to start fighting now, but they don't really have the health to do it. Viper poked low, but he's going for Stixxay.
Goes for the flash knockup, gets a little bit there. Stixxay is not going to be able to fight this one off. Dignitas are going to complete the win, a 36-minute crush of the Nexus. Dignitas, 3 wins in a row.
What a turnaround this split for Dignitas. 0-8. Now winning 3 straight games here, again against CLG. This one was very tightly contested, but I've got to give a lot of credit to them. You know, I was doubting the fact that they were actually subbing in Viper here, but I think it made sense with the Riven pick. He looked great on it. They were also able to have an incredible performance, I think, from aphromoo. His Bard was so huge. Even just the fact that he actually completely negated, you know, multiple Rift Heralds. He was setting up plays for them very well in the team fights, finding angles for ults, which allowed Riven to close the gap to get in on top of them, which allowed Sett to get in on top of them and even set up some of those shockwaves. So really impressive performance from here. And Dignitas have got to be so happy about this.
You know, Ezreal, the thing I'm sad about is we are not going to get a Dignitas Riven skin, because in order to get a World skin, you must have played the champion during the tournament, and a Worlds caliber team is not going to leave Riven up against Viper. I think it's a crucial mistake by CLG to go to the second phase of bans and say, okay, what top laner do we need to ban so that Ruin feels safe? Kennen against Viper. Kennen is the ban we need. When Viper got his Riven buffed in this patch, they let it through, he got the counter pick, and the team fights went well. aphromoo, again, huge props to him, did so much for the setup here. A lot of good work at the Dignitas squad overall. 3 wins in a row. Exciting to watch this team step up later on in the split, because they've got a lot of work to go, but they can certainly do it. Top 8 make playoffs, they can make that run for sure at this point. Either way, it is time for us to step out. When we come back, the analysts will break down how Dignitas pulled that win. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk, where we're diving into that Dignitas win over CLG. We had a lot of questions coming into the day with the substitution of Viper for Dignitas after mounting a 2-0 weekend in the previous week, saying if it's working, why would you attempt a fix? And yet, the Riven comes out in Champion Select, and they pilot it to a victory. Let's dive in, though, because probably I know you have thoughts on the way it broke down in the first phase of picks and bans.
Yeah, let's give a little compliment to CLG. This is a great first phase. They're banning out LeBlanc, Azir, the Flex, and Karma. These are a lot of Phoenix champions. He's only shown a good laning phase on Azir, so I'm really happy about this. They take the Graves first pick away from Dardoch, who had a monster performance last week with the Ignite Graves. Ezreal for Ashe is fine. They take Zoe and get Ori. That's great. This is a great start. CLG, good job. But let's look at the 4 or 5 bans and picks from CLG real quick. Let's
All right, we'll flip those over.
just put them on the
see
screen
how
real
they
quick.
fell. What was the issue? What is the issue you had with their 4-5?
All right, Dig just brought up Viper. Who knows Viper about anything about him?
I know
It's
something
Riven.
about him.
I know something.
Yeah, exactly. There's no conversation about about Viper that isn't including Riven. And here they banned Thresh, totally fine. They want to save a good support. And then they banned a Kennen. Ban the Riven.
Dude.
Like the Ornn that they pick is a fine matchup because when when Viper is playing Riven, he's not gonna stomp lane or anything. He's just gonna farm and do team fights well. That's exactly what Ornn's gonna do. And Viper, this is just his dream. Someone doesn't ban Riven and he gets last pick. I don't know how this happens.
I'm super with you, probably, because if somebody has also been watching Academy, you would have seen Viper play Kennen on Thursday. Not bannable, all right? Just you don't ban this pick. It's not needed, so they just threw one away.
Yeah, so maybe a bit of a misstep out of CLG in Champion Select, allowing that counter pick or final pick Riven to come through for Dignitas. But with all of that said, we have to acknowledge that things started well for CLG in the early game. They built a significant gold advantage.
Yeah, I got my help from the top lane. I think Rune actually played decently well in the laning phase. He got TP advantage, and they were able to use that in a play on the bot side of the map where they could dive the turret. It was a really nice play, and it was what kind of gave them that. Here we go. This is what gave them the early game advantage. Bard, Afro had a great Bard over the course of this game, but they just didn't have the numbers to match it. So even though you're stalling, what's coming to join you? It's just a Phoenix TP. Dardoch's on the opposite side of the map. Your Riven can't match it, and this was one of the first plays that started to break the game open for the side of CLG.
And what we needed to see from CLG, from these advantages, is a stronger focus on the Drakes. They just were not able to secure those whatsoever. They lost the soul. And when you have mid lane that is winning so hard, that's able to rotate to the sidelines and make those kinds of plays, they need to translate to objectives. And it just did not happen. And this was one of those fights where you thought, okay, Dardoch got caught. Even Pobelter throws out the emo thinking that they have it, but then a huge shockwave over the wall sends them back to the gray screen.
Yeah, this is such a good start to a fight for them because they want everyone to dump their damage onto Graves because that allows, the Ashe to deal damage, the Riven to go in, the Ori even got a free ult because they're all stockpiling on the Sett. So this is a perfect fight for Dig to start.
And it was another time that Afro used his Bard ult to save the turret from taking the Rift Herald damage. He did it on both Rift Heralds, and that slowed the game down from what could have been like a CLG snowball, the fact that they didn't get mid-turret there, and then Dardoch is able to use that distraction to take a fight and get it in their favor. That really put the brakes on CLG. They still had a gold lead for a large portion of the game, but it stopped growing.
That's why Dragon's so important, because the Bard can do that to you. If you focus on the Heralds, Bard just, okay, you don't get Herald anymore. Nice job spending your time in the top side.
Yeah, there was a pivotal moment in the game, and it really seemed to change the pace of it entirely, as you mentioned, Mark, which rolls us forward to our game-ending fight. And in typical fashion, you expect these, to end with a Viper flank. He's just completed his TP there to that bush and looking for it, so let's see what they find.
And this is such an uncomfortable position for CLG because they want these long fights, but as soon as they pull the Drake, they basically put CLG on a timer that says, you have to come up or the Drake is going to be dead. And then as soon as they come up, Bard just portals behind him, gets an ult, gets a Q, and the fight just starts for them.
I mean, this is also after they had Baron. The Baron fight was another big mistake for me where Wiggily smote really early. He did that a couple times this game. I have no idea what was going on with Wiggly's smite key. There was even at the Raptors, where Dardoch shows his face and he panic smites at 800 health in the early game, and like, you know, there was the same thing at the Baron, where as soon as Dardoch went in, he smite, and the Baron was still healthy enough for Dardoch to steal it. So this was one of those games where that Baron coin flip could have gone in favor of CLG and prolonged the game.
Let me ask you this straight up, Probably. Was this game from its kind of mid-game state with CLG up 4K gold, was that entirely winnable? In fact, would you say it should have been won by CLG at that point?
Whew, that's a rough one. Yes. I would say if you have a poke comp with Ezreal and Zoe, I assume you've played out the macro game properly, where you're gathering some resources like heralds and dragons and towers, and you're able to corral the enemy team to come into you. But kind of the opposite was happening. Even though they had this gold lead, they started, you know, doing these weird chases, getting these losses, and then it ended up being Dig starting the objectives and pulling CLG in. So it's like they had a gold lead, but they were playing like they were behind.
Yeah, we got glimpses out of CLG of what we wanted, but it didn't come entirely to fruition. Crumbs, talk to me about Viper on Riven. Again, we had questions coming into the day about why the sub was happening, but he showed up.
He did, and an additional context to Viper and why we might see more of him is that in 10-14, the Riven did get buffed. She's a little bit stronger with her passive damage, which actually ends up being quite a bit when you factor in the lifesteal. But the record that he has there really contrasts to every other stat that he has on other champions.
Yeah, on non-Riven, he has a 35% win rate, 22 and 62, a 2.4 KDA, and 19% damage on non-Riven. I mean, yeah, he didn't pop off and like solo carry Smurf on this game with Riven, but you're talking about a night and day comparison between someone who struggles at the LCS level on things that are not Riven and being a very, very good player on any team, regardless of what team comp he's playing into when he plays Riven. It's just ban it. You're nerfing him so hard just by banning it.
And above all else, I'm happy to see him perform on his signature champion, and I'm happy to see Dignitas utilize it. More teams finding ways to expand their roster and find some creativity in Champion Select. We're going to step away. When we return, we hear from the world's strongest man ahead of EG versus C9. Don't miss it.
Welcome to Assist of the Day, presented by State Farm. In this assist, LCKR lines up TSM and knocks them down with the full range of an Ornn ultimate.
Potentially, then the Mordekaiser being behind. LCKR's looking to be engaged, though.
There's a play yet again. A lot of damage down. Broken Blade will fall off. Sven not going to be traded back just yet. He's in the back line. He's going to force double lift the flash. It's going to miss. He can't catch the Varus. The burst damage for Varus. 2-3 more autos, but it's not going to be enough. And Sven again cleans up another kill. Bjerg's on the right.
And we've upgraded her with the Sonic Shield and holographic mapping drones.
Impressive.
There is one more thing.
Jake from State Farm.
Here's the deal. With the Drive Safe and Save app, you'll save up to 30% for being a safe driver and get a discount just for signing up.
Well played, Jake from State Farm. As usual.
When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.